county clerk. I was elected a year and a half ago. So this is all relatively new to me as well as it is to everybody. Daphne Lindeman is with me today as well. She is actually in charge of our judges and our polling places, and she also works with the schools on whenever we have students come in to help with the election also. So I was told you guys had a lot of questions, or you wanted to know about the mail-in process and all that. This year, due to our wonderful pandemic, we actually were slated to have 4 elections, which we did. This April's election, which became June's election, was the first time in the state's history that we ever moved an election. During the Civil War, during World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea, the Russia Wars, even the Great Depression, they did not move an election, but we moved one for this one and went from April to June for that. So we made a little history there. After they did that, they introduced House Bill 631, which allowed the states, the voters basically, to have 2 more options on the absentee process. Missouri has always had an absentee process, and there's an application that is brought with it, which I actually brought one today if anybody'd like to see it, or if you go on our website, franklinmo.org, it's on there, and there's actually 2 different applications on there. One is strictly for what's called the mail-in ballot, and one is for the regular absentee excuse ballot. The 2 things that changed was on our ballot, they have now what's called the COVID excuse, and one of the questions that comes up very commonly is, do I have to get this notarized whenever we send the ballot out to them? The answer is yes, except for 2 excuses. One, which has always been, if you're on the permanent disability, that you automatically get an application sent to you. That one does not need to be notarized, nor the COVID excuse. If you're over 65, have immune disease, or immune compromised, liver disease, heart disease, diabetic, cancer disease, lung disease, and you're in a long-time care facility, that does not need to be notarized. Anything else that you click has to be notarized. Now the bad thing, and not the bad thing, but the thing that confuses a lot of voters is when they put the word mail-in there. The states that are mail-in ballot or mail-in states, they literally send out a ballot to every registered voter. Missouri does not do that. You have to request it via this form. So by requesting it, then whenever we're able to send out the ballots, then we'll start processing them and send them out to the voters. A mail-in state, literally, like I said, just sends out the ballot to everybody. There's no checks and balance, so that's where you hear these stories of dead people voting and stuff like that, because if a state does not clean up their rolls, and the rolls means the voter rolls, who's all on the rolls. Like for example, Franklin County actually has one person that it's her job to do nothing but to go through obituaries, look at what the state has on their, from the health and senior services, on death certificates, and she does nothing but clean. She also does the incarcerated ones also. So she does nothing but make sure that our rolls are cleaned up. Currently, Franklin County has a little over 74,000 voters on the roll, but we only have what's called 64,000 active. That means people that have actively voted. If you have not voted in 2 election cycles, you get moved to the inactive rolls, but that does not mean that you're still not registered to vote, okay? So, the governor signed this into law. We ended up having a lot of questions about what's mail and what's not. If you click the mail-in excuse, which anybody can click it on the thing to check mark it, you have to get it notarized, and that ballot has to be mailed back to us. You cannot drop it off at our office like you can an absentee. So what we've done is we actually have a white envelope and we have our normal manila envelope. So if somebody was to get a white envelope with the ballot in it, that means they requested a mail-in ballot and it must be mailed back to us. So here's where some problems lie. If you walk in, by state statute, we have to receive every ballot, whether it be at the polling place or from the absentee process at 7 o'clock on day of election. Okay, that's when the last time is we can get it. So if you walked into my office on election day with a white envelope on election day itself, whether it be at 6 in the morning or at 7 at night, we would not be able to accept it and your vote would not count because it has to be mailed back. That's the state law. And there's no way we're going to get it in that short a time period. So I know that's a big concern. What kind of questions do you guys have right now? I mean, do you have anything from what you were asking about that you want to know in particular, or? Yes, ma'am.
I read an article in this class talking about the difficulties like that Native Americans would have that live on reservations?
Well, that's a great question, but I don't,
I
yeah,
just didn't
because
know.
for that one, because we don't have any
Yeah,
reservations
right, I
right
just
now,
didn't know if you.
nor in Missouri that I'm aware of. I know, like for us, let's say we have people in a nursing home. Now, this is a little touchy because right now nursing homes are basically sealed in. But the way it normally works is that if there's more than 10 people in a certain area, like a nursing home or a assisted living facility, then we would send a bipartisan team in to administer for them to be able to vote. I can't speak on other states, I don't know, but that's an interesting question. You know,
That's just like a con that I read that
Sure.
Native Americans that live on reservations, they like don't have a street address and stuff, so like.
Well, no, you have to show some form of ID in order to vote in Missouri.
Yeah.
You either can do it with your driver's license, your voter card, you can have a passport, your school ID would work, a military ID would work, or if you had a piece of paper, had a piece of mail with either your bank, you know, from your bank or from your electric company, that would also work too, for that. So that's a very interesting question that I have no answer for. Anybody else got anything at the current time? Yes, sir.
One of the articles I read Friday was like, it said that some notaries, like it might cost money to get it notarized. I don't know.
That's a great question, and that's a very big misunderstanding. State statute clearly states that if you are getting something notarized for the purpose of a ballot, and I don't have that statute number, it's 115 something, but there is no charge. And if somebody charges you for it, they're breaking the law. So there is no way that a notary can charge you legally to notarize a ballot. That's a good question.
I had a question off something you said.
Yes, sir.
It has to be in your hand on election day, or does it have to be postmarked on
No, it
election
has to
day?
be in my hand.
Okay, and is
Anything
that,
that is postmarked, the state statute clearly, it's very, and this is where there's been a lot of debate on this also. The only ballots that we can accept up until Friday after the election are military. Military are the only ballots that we can accept up until Friday. That's why whenever you hear the word uncertified results, that because they're not certified, they're just the results we have for that night. We still have to wait for all the military ballots to come in. And I think right now we have about 20 of them in Franklin County that could potentially keep us from certifying till after Friday. But that's a good question.
and that's for absentee and mail-in, both?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Something else that a lot of people want to know with the absentee process or the mail-in is that, again, if say your mom or your grandma or your grandpa, they want you to deliver the ballot to us, you as their grandchildren or child or niece or nephew, you can do that, but you cannot take it to the polling place. It has to be at our office. That's another big misconception that people have. They figure if they give it to an election judge, that's good. That's not the case, because again, it has to be in our hands at 7 o'clock, the polls close at 7, so there's no way for those judges to get that ballot to us. The way that this process works is that currently right now, in 2016, just to give you some numbers, in the August election, we sent out roughly 1,200 ballots through the mail, through absentee process. This last August election, we did about 2,400. Of that, we had about 1,800 of them returned, so about a 75% return on the ballots that were requested. So far this year, for this election, last 2016 for the November general, they sent out a little over 3,200. We're expecting to get at least 7,000 to 8,000 of those requests back to us. Currently, as of today, whenever I left the office, that has not been processed, we're almost at 2,100. And the ballots will not go out until September 22nd. That's the other big question that we get all the time. I sent my request in 2 weeks ago. Why haven't I got my ballot yet? Well, by state statute, we can't send them out until 6 weeks prior to the election, which is September 22nd. Plus, we don't even have the ballots in our hand yet. We won't get those till next week. So that's a big thing there. People automatically assume because they've already given it to us that there's not a process there to wait for it. If you know of anybody that is requesting an absentee ballot, please let them know that as soon as they get their ballot from us, fill it out and send it back to us, because we don't know how long the mail is going to take to get it to us. We received one ballot from March from the presidential primary election, came in May. We can't count it because it was 2 months after the fact, but there's nothing we can do about it once it's been mailed. So that's another thing that has happened. In this whole time of